everyone. It's Matt Fraser here with this week's edition of Ecoffee with Experts. And on today's show, I have with me Adam Singer with Ability Growth Partners. Now, Adam has a history of success helping companies and nonprofits get found, get business, and get results online. He is considered to be an educator and consultant for WordPress, HubSpot, SEO, social media marketing, and inbound marketing. And he has been quoted in the Savannah Morning News and elsewhere on these topics. Adam, thanks so much for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Right on. So Adam, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Potomac, Maryland, a little suburb of Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow. Awesome. And where did you end up going to school?
So I went to a public high school, Winston Churchill High School, graduated in 92, and then went to Kenyon College in central Ohio, somewhere in the middle of nowhere between Columbus and Cleveland. There's a great education to be found. And
All right.
I was delighted to have that. Yeah.
And so how did you get started in digital marketing and in SEO and all those things?
God, that's a great. There's so many ways to peel that onion. I think my favorite answer is I became a WordPress consultant first because I needed a job and I was starting to learn WordPress. And then Matt Mullenweg, who is the author of WordPress and is current CEO of WordPress, walked into my office together with Jen Milo, who was also known as Jane Wells. Who was at the time sort of the chief operating officer of WordPress. So when the founder and the chief operating officer walked in and Jen said to Matt, I'd like you to meet Adam, he's a WordPress consultant. At that point, I was like, oh, I guess I'm a WordPress consultant. So that's kind of how that was the milestone to me that I became a WordPress person. That then morphed eventually as I got deeper into the HubSpot ecosystem in 2014 when I first became a HubSpot agency partner, and sort of discovered that in the process of understanding in my opinion, the right way to build websites to deliver growth through online marketing opportunities, it felt like, I guess I'm an agency and I guess I'm doing marketing now and not just websites. And so that's kind of how that transition continued, along with just sort of a thirst to understand SEO and social and all the stuff that was developing in those years between 2010 and now. So that's kind of the 10,000 feet sort of visit.
Well, let's unpack that a little bit. How did Matt Mullenweg walk into your office?
I know. Isn't that wild?
Yeah,
it was like the coolest thing. So, I mean, to deepen it even further. Okay, so I'm from Potomac, Maryland. I went to college in Ohio. While I was there, I grew up. I live in Israel now. I grew up Jewish, but without a whole lot of real strong Jewish education. And to give a footnote there, I did about 12 years of deep learning in Jewish history, Jewish philosophy, Jewish theology, and wound up in Savannah because of an opportunity to be sort of a scholar in residence in Jewish thought at a synagogue in Savannah. And when that gig kind of lasted for about 6 years, and then it sort of came to an end and it was time to do something else. So that something else was returning back to some marketing website stuff, which is what led me to find a space. And the co-working space at the time was the only co-working space that I found anyway in Savannah, Georgia. So I'm in Savannah, Georgia one day as a kind of scholar in residence, junior rabbi kind of figure. And then as time progresses, as that ended, I find myself in a co-working space trying to figure out how to make a living in 2010 in a co-working space. So in that co-working space, I'm sitting and working on WordPress, and a woman walks in with a WordPress backpack and a WordPress t-shirt and a WordPress she remember WordPress socks on. She was just decked out in WordPress. And I'm like, like it was like a walking WordPress billboard. What's up with that? And she said, she said, I run WordPress. And I'm like, really? And I said to her, I remember the words. I said to her, you don't look like Matt. You don't look like Matt Mullenweg to me. And he's actually a good friend of mine. I think it was in 2008. He tapped me to run WordPress, and he focused on his investments, or whatever it was. And so that was Jen Wells or Jane Wells or Jen Milo. I can't keep track. And apparently, she was kind of running the core team, is what they were called at that time. I think she's left WordPress since then. But anyway, so that was August 2010. In October 2010, she comes in with these 3 guys, and she says, it's Matt Mullenweg, Mark Japquest, who wrote the WordPress Bible, I think, years and years ago. And I think he was one of the, and Jason, I can't remember his last name, but another one of the real inner circle people at WordPress. And I didn't really make anything of it. But then later I Googled, I was like, that was Matt Mullenweg. And it was like, okay. And I actually reached out to him on Twitter, and I was like, thank you for making this software that helps me support my family. And he's like, my pleasure, which I was like, that was just really cool. So anyway,
that's awesome.
That was my WordPress brush with fame in 2010, 2011. I can't remember which one it was. I think one of those 2 years.
So how did you get started with WordPress? Like, how did you discover it?
So in my mind's eye, so as my rabbi career was kind of winding down, and I had always saw myself going back into the business world, I should say. I had I'd always been sort of the computer person from the 1980s, and with the first Apple computer and the second Apple IIe in 1982. And so I kind of went back to that. Yeah. All right. That was an amazing, just entry. So as I was, merging out, I learned HTML in 1997, I think. So now it's 2010. So I'm learning HTML and CSS and just kind of digging into that stuff. And I don't remember the first time I heard about WordPress, but it was like it was here, and then it was there, and then I kept hearing about it again and again. And there was a rabbi who I looked up to a great deal, who had a WordPress, who somebody was built a WordPress website for him, and it was like, does anyone know WordPress? They could help with this. And I was like, well, I don't, but I now I feel like I should. So I did, what was then lynda.com, and then became LinkedIn Learning. And that was how I learned WordPress. And that was my first thing. And I just sort of I really was still putting my fingers into all the different, pies to see where I would go, until, like I said, Matt Mullenweg walked into my office, and Jen Wells and introduced me as, or Jane Wells, whatever. She goes by both names. I don't understand what that's about. Anyways, introduced me as a WordPress. So I was like, well, I think that kind of solves it. So that was how I got to know it, and that's how it sort of became a focus for me.
All right, on. And so, do you predominantly build? There's just so many things to talk about. Like, for instance, WordPress, has that become your main tool that you use to build websites with?
It was for a long time. And then as the HubSpot CMS, which first was the COS and the CMS, everything became more a part of what I work with, and I became more comfortable with it. It's just become more, that's become my go-to. I think for a lot of businesses, especially, like I find myself now much more in HubSpot than I am in WordPress.
Okay.
So that's where I am overall.
Okay. And so you got started, you met Matt Mullenweg, you're working on WordPress websites. What was the first marketing initiative digital marketing campaign, clients that you?
So the HubSpot kind of Kool-Aid first started dripping on me, in the idea that rather than selling a project, you should be selling retainers, which made so much sense to me. That the idea was that most businesses, when they think they want a website, what they really want is to grow revenue or to grow in some way. True. And generally speaking, a one-shot website, especially if you're trying to really develop some foothold in how people find what you're offering, generally needs more than just build a website and forget about it. And even if you're always going to build a website and forget about it, there's still stuff that's going to need to be done. So that transition happened with HubSpot's kind of concept of working on a retainer. And my first clients were Henry Plumbing in Savannah, Georgia, because I was in Savannah still at the time. Henry Plumbing and McCall's Heating and Air. So HVAC company and plumber, and working with them. So I built their websites, and then it was, how do we get them to advance their ranks on Google? So that was where SEO started playing a bigger role, and WordPress at the time certainly was the gold standard for SEO, and that played well into that as well. So those were the two clients. We were able to really pull Henry Plumbing way up the ranks, and they maintained that. McCall's Heating and Air was a little bit harder, but anyway, I think we achieved some good things there. And but those are my first clients I remember as being a retainer-based client, as opposed to you're paying me once for a website kind of thing.
So what has been your greatest success in digital marketing, would you say?
So I'll tell you what's most exciting to me as I stand here. So I just find okay. I'm sure that the people you have on your podcast are excellent and so goals driven. I just find there is so much inefficiency in this marketplace, so much marketing and so much marketing spend that really goes to nothing. That one of my favorite achievements was, there was a big agency who I'm not going to mention their name because I do respect the people there a great bit. And they were working with these massive clients, and I talked to them. Actually, they wanted to hire me as a WordPress developer, and I was like, I really have my own thing. And so I remained a freelancer, which is what I still generally am. And anyway, so they were this big company working with big agency working with Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies doing big stuff for them. And a large client of theirs approached me saying, "Hey, we're really dissatisfied with this agency. We are looking for someone to run our Google ads and run our website, et cetera, et cetera. Can you help us?" And I'm like, hell yeah. So, it was intimidating, to be honest, but it was like, I looked at their numbers and I was like, you guys are spending how much and getting what for it? Yeah. And it was like, so anyways, to make a long story at least end without getting too much longer, they went from spending about, I think, $5 or $8, maybe even $10,000 a month on the campaigns they were running, to spending closer to $4,000 to $6,000 a month, and generally close to the $4,000 a month side on the Google ads. And the result has been more leads and more conversions than they were getting before. So we were able to reduce their spend by about $10,000 a month and actually increase their conversions and increase their lead count. And so that was like, that to me felt great. That's
awesome,
because it was this big agency was working. It was, and I knew the people, and I still think, I still respect them tremendously, but I definitely wouldn't recommend them for Google ads or for paid promotions,
paid advertising.
Yeah.
So are you able to share some of the maybe strategies that you used to achieve that?
Yeah. I mean, I think, and I don't know, you'll pardon me if I'm speaking, things that everybody else knows, but I think I think it's just beginning with, the end in mind, so to speak. Like, what are you trying to achieve here? In my estimation, there are only 5 things that any digital marketing campaign should be approaching, and all of them are revenue. If you don't have revenue as your goal, unless you're with a nonprofit, in which case your goal is impact, because ultimately you have to raise money. And if you're not making an impact, why would anyone want to give you money? So if you can't show either a measurable revenue or a measurable impact, then it's hard to understand why you're doing this. And so then you sort of work back from that metric. So revenue comes from customers. customers come from leads. Leads come from visitors. Those are the 5 things. If you're not getting revenue, customers, leads, visitors, leads, customers, and revenue, those are the 4 things, and this impact would say, right? Then what are you doing? So if you haven't set that as your goal specifically, that needs to be done. And you need to set numbers that identify and say, okay, listen, our goal for this project is we want to make this much money, this much revenue. We think we're going to get that by getting this many more customers. Then we understand from a digital standpoint, looking at SEMrush, looking at numbers, or excuse me, talking to your sales team, this is how many leads we need to get this many customers. That's our close rate. This is what, if you, WordStream has a great infographic that shows, average conversion rates. So if we have conversion rate is like an average of 2.4% or 3%, and you need to get 85 leads to close your goal number, then you need this much traffic. Okay, if that's how much traffic you need, then the question is, all right, how many visitors you need to get that number? What keywords should you be targeting, either from a paid sense or from an organic sense, that gives you a reasonable shot at getting that kind of traffic? Okay, now we have some kind of an architecture. The next piece to think about is, and this is so simple and so brilliant from Seth Godin, as usual, is the way that you judge a website or a web page, for that matter, is by asking 2 simple questions. Who is it for? What do they want to see when they get there? If you haven't asked those questions, your website probably sucks. Pardon me for saying so. But it's true. If you haven't thought to yourself, okay, who has a problem they're going to pay me handsomely to solve, then what is your website? What chance does your website have of achieving any reasonable SEO? Google's job is to give people what they want and what they're looking for, not to give them your business. So why not just go ahead and build a business or build a website that makes people say, oh my God, I can't believe Google brought me here. This is exactly what I was looking for. If you haven't had that conversation with your web developer or with your marketing team or with your positioning team before you build your website, SEO can't help you, in my opinion. Because you didn't try. So anyway, so let's say the secret sauce begins with, it's not a secret sauce. I think to me it's not intuitive, but it's so clear. First, you have to have those goals: revenue, leads, customers, leads, visitors. And then I would add in the 5th thing that I think about as visibility is your, how much, what brings your traffic in. So visitors, leads, customers, revenue, visibility. Those 5 things. What's your goal with this project? Number 2, who's got a problem they will pay you handsomely to solve? Or if you're a nonprofit, who cares about the problem you're solving enough to fund you? And then on the next side is, then what does a page look like that unites those things together, that will make that your target audience say, dear Google, thank you so much for delivering me to this page. It really solved my problem. Because at the end of the day, that's Google's job. Google wants to bring people to the page. So that's kind of my, that's kind of where it begins. I don't think it's a secret sauce. It's more of like why isn't everyone doing that? Why isn't that the name of everyone's game? So anyway, that's my direction.
On a more technical, I guess on a more granular, I don't know if granular is the right word, but for instance, did you implement proper conversion tagging? Did you organize the keyword groups to get better targeting with the keywords, adding negative keywords? Are there any specific attribution methods that you used to measure the effectiveness of the campaign that you implemented?
Again, I'm a HubSpot. I bleed orange in HubSpot. Like they're just so well set up to show exactly what goes into the system, what comes out of the system. Okay. From the from your paid ads to your paid. I don't know. I actually haven't used them much for paid social. I know it's there, but I use it more for paid Google ads. From the paid Google ads, certainly, to your SEO, to your, to what
landing page,
landing pages, and that. To me, it's my marketing stack is HubSpot and SEMrush. That's the core of my marketing stack. So I'm looking at SEMrush to see what keywords I should be going after, and also to see where my clients are ranking and how that rank is changing. I'm using the listings tool in SEMrush for companies that are looking for local SEO, to make sure that their citations, their information is being pushed out appropriately to the right places. And then I'm using HubSpot to measure the success, to see are those terms. So I'm using SEMrush to measure the visibility. I'm using HubSpot to measure the conversion from visitors to leads to customers. So that's there. Secret sauce SEO wise, I mean, Justin Champion, who I adore, also a HubSpot guy. I heard him give a great class, and I've kept in touch with him a little bit over the years, on pillar pages, as just really embracing the subject that you're trying to win as a high volume term, by creating multiple pieces of content around it, and then organizing it in a way that makes it really easy to work with. I've seen a lot of success from that. I think a lot of what I've become known for, in Baltimore anyway, is because of a successful pillar page I put up for Baltimore SEO. So that's there.
All right on.
Yeah. I think it's something else I want to share. Yeah, go ahead.
What are then 5 digital marketing mistakes that should be avoided? Is it maybe those 5 things you mentioned, not targeting, not coming up with that strategy, or is there anything else you could share from your years of experience?
I think the first thing is not having a specific goal of what you're going out to do. Not setting for yourself and saying, this page's job is to generate leads for us. If it doesn't do that, it's not doing its job right. Or this page's job is to rank better on Google and then deliver it to this page that generates leads. Not having a specific job and not holding your website and your web pages accountable the way you hold your employees accountable for delivering specific goals, is problem number 1. Problem number 2 is developing the web page for yourself and not for your prospects.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, no one other than maybe your mom, and I love my mom, but really wants to hear about what your business is about. They don't care. They're here because they have a problem, looking for a solution. Yeah. So that's problem number 2. I would say I'd extend that into the Google ad space and say that not setting up conversion tracking, not having conversion goals for your ads, sending your ad traffic to your homepage. That's like that. That's again, unless your homepage. Well, it's just the question is what is your homepage's job? If your homepage's job is to meet this specific client's needs, then fine, but just be deliberate about it in terms of holding these things accountable. Those are the top 3, I'd say. Not having a specific conversion set up, and not having building for yourself, not building for your prospects, and not having specific goals. I guess the 4th one, and I don't want to say the 4th goal is not trusting Google, because it's trusting Google, because I love Google. I mean, I know Google's for all its flaws, but I think it's a great. I love I mean, there's so much great about that company in my perspective. Yeah. But recognize that their goals and your goals are not the same in some ways. They want more clicks, and they also want to give your clients the best experience. But it's trusting their automation too much, I feel like is not a great. Is another failure I've seen. So that's 4, like 5.
Yeah, no, that was great. How do you see digital marketing changing in the near future?
I I want to say first how I think it's not going to change, because to me that's more interesting. To me, the people who consistently help others and consistently have a reputation as adding value will continue to raise to the top. And if you make that your North Star, that your North Star is that people know that they're going to get a great experience from you, they're going to get what they want from you, you will be the Apple and the Tesla of the of the next generation, however it changes, whether you're on VR or AR or Oculus or Apple's a VR device. If you can consistently develop a reputation as really helping those who need who solving the problem for people who will pay you handsomely to solve that problem, and consistently offering valuable resources to do that for that audience, you will rise to the top. In my perspective, you may have to budget your marketing spend to be able to survive long enough to get there. Yeah. But if you consistently offer that and you effectively build an audience around your actually delivering objects of things of value, then you will rise to the top. How that will change? Go ahead.
Well, in your mind, how can companies or people do that? How can businesses do that?
I mean, I think you're doing it right now. I think you're by choosing to whatever it is that you're doing, by reaching out and trying to create content of value and content that will solve a problem, kind of will help people. That creates a relationship, certainly between you and I expect and hope between anybody who listens to the podcast as well. That's how marketing ought to be. In my perspective, and that kind of marketing will only get better and increase with time, because that's how all these internet-based systems work. So whether it's a podcast, whether it's a vlog, whether it's a blog, whether it's Instagram, creating things of value to help those who have a problem that they will pay you to solve will always be the best marketing, in my opinion.
That is awesome. That's a nugget right there. That creating value, and whatever you're doing, you're creating value to solve a problem that people would pay you handsomely for, and always keeping that in mind.
And then tying that sorry.
No, go ahead. And like you said, whether it's tying it to, I don't want to take over the interview, but like you said, whether it's tying it to an infographic or just a blog post or a vlog, like you said, or this podcast or whatever, you always have that in mind. Yeah, you'll probably always be successful.
And then if you tie that to a specific goal, to a measurable goal, whether it's visibility, visitors, leads, customers, or revenue, and you're consistently testing, okay, we added value, but it didn't bring us leads. So we need to tweak. Because we're adding value to the wrong people, or the right people aren't seeing it. I mean, it's, is it actually that? Does everyone know this already? I don't know. But if it's tied to those metrics, and you're measuring those metrics, which is why I love HubSpot. That's why, and I'm sure there are other flavors of that kind of marketing automation and marketing and ways to measure those things. I just, HubSpot was the bandwagon I joined in 2014, and I've been satisfied with it ever since. But that process of measurement and then consistently iterating to make that process better and better, that's how companies live, thrive, and grow. If from the marketing side anyway, there's obviously other stuff from the company, but the marketing side, if you're consistently measurably and demonstrably adding value and seeing the benefits of that in terms of visibility, visitors, leads, customers, and revenue, that's growth. That's what it's all about.
That's awesome.
And incidentally, if I may add also, that is what Google is set up to do. That is Google's job. Google's job, and the reason they maintain a huge portion of market share is because everybody, without even thinking of it, knows that when they want something, when they want any information or anything on the planet, they can find it on Google. Yeah. And that's also why all these SEO tricks and black and whatever will always fail, because you have $1 billion, trillion. I don't know how much Google's actually worth at this point, but $1 billion in the line. I don't care how much you can put into the system that lets you think that you can get, you can find some way around actually delivering quality value to your consumers. Google's got $1 billion against you. You're not going to beat the house. Eventually, they're going to catch up. So that's kind of my that's
amazing. When you think about that, if you're trying to, like you said, if you're trying to bypass that thing of creating value, and doing all the black hat gimmickry and all those things without creating that value, they're not, and you get there with all those tricks, right. You're eventually going to get found out. And like you said, the house is going to beat you. So,
I mean, that's the reason why we Google and we don't Bing, and why we, exactly. Because as soon as people get the sense that I'm not going to find what I want, I'm going to find what Google wants me to find, then we'll stop Googling. We'll start, DuckDuckGoing, and we'll start, we'll start Binging or whatever. And then people obviously have, but it's such a small portion of the pie. And I'm my money's still on Google.
Yeah, and I find the results are never, at least at this point, the results that you're always typing to Google always seem to be what you want. And if you're doing a whole bunch of research, then you kind of maybe will give Bing and DuckDuckGo a try. But
I have heard other marketers say, particularly WordStream, that one of the things people do wrong is they don't put some money into Bing, which sounds smart to me, because Bing does populate a lot of searches where you don't expect it to be. It's just still
interesting,
a small part of the market.
Yeah. So how have you seen digital marketing change over the years? Since you've been doing it like quite a long time.
I mean, I will say, like, the first thing that comes to mind is I feel like the world in the last 5 to 10 years, even last 3 to 5 years, maybe more accurate, has caught up to WordPress. Like, what's that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Has caught up to WordPress. Yeah, because it felt like in 2011, it was like, oh my God, this is so much easier than making my own website. I can use this WordPress thing and it just pops up. And then you had Envato and ThemeForce and all these beautiful themes. You could just grab something and throw it on there. And that was like, it was so easy, and it was so, there was so much there, and there was no one else who was occupying that space. There was just no other good alternative to it. And now it feels like the WordPress ecosystem is unbeatable at this moment, because it's just so big, and there's so many people who are still feeding it. But I think that there are so many other at this point, a novice developer who wants to build her own website has more options than a WordPress website at this point. And 5 years ago, 10 years ago, to me, there wasn't any. There just wasn't. It wasn't there. I think also one, like I said, certainly the that's like two things that come to mind at this moment is the seamlessness of experiences across platforms, where it used to be that your website was your online identity. And now it's really not. I mean, there's so much that is, there's so much between your experience, the omni-channel marketing, right? So that is your experience on Facebook, your experience on Instagram, your experience on the website, your experience on Google. There's where 10 years ago it would make sense to hire someone to build your website. At this point, to me, in my mind, it's hard to think of it making sense for any business to just have a website and just think about their identity as a website. Their website is going to be both the website and the other platforms where they're going to come from to come to the website.
Yeah.
The second or third piece, I guess I'm talking about now, which I think is that the biggest thing is how much is going on Google. So in other words, when 10 years ago, when you Googled something, you got 10 links or 20 links, and you clicked on that link and you went to the web page. Now there's like 45 different things that come up on a possible Google search results page. And the reality is that my understanding is that upwards of 50% of Google searches don't end in any click whatsoever because the person finds the information there on the page.
Yeah.
So dealing with the fact that as a brand that's trying to get discovered, your website is certainly it's never going to be not one of the most important things. I'm not sure it's the most important part of how you get of your online marketing. Your online the most important part to me is how you get someone to the website at this point. And that I think has changed. I think that, it used to be that it was the website itself that got you there. Now there's just so much more of the ecosystem to feed. The website's certainly a rich part of it, but there's just so much more around it that you need to be thinking about in terms of how do you get people to the website.
Yeah.
That's another one of the things people do wrong is they think too much about the website, not enough at all about how to get people to the website. So anyway,
what are some of the ways that you would suggest on that note?
Yeah,
some of the strategies.
I mean, you have to start with understanding that who has the problem that they will help you solve. That's from that perspective, and then thinking about how they experience that problem, and are they going to experience and how they're going to handle that experience, that problem. Are they going to handle that experience, that problem by Googling? If they're going to Google, what are they going to Google? And then how do you lay that breadcrumb trail that makes you the best solution from that problem? Are they not thinking about that problem? They just have it and they thought about it, whatever. And so you want to make sure that you have some paid presence on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or wherever else they hang out so that they get that blurb, because that's what good marketing is in those platforms that makes someone say, oh God, I have that problem. You solve it. That's great. Let me look more into that. So it has to begin with understanding some empathetic understanding of this person who's got a problem that you solve. And then it's playing that out to where they hang out and laying the seeds for that, whether it's, and then delivering value consistently enough so that you win enough trust that they'll give you their information or reach out to you directly.
Yeah. So would you say that building a business, like, to me, everything you're saying sounds like that businesses should build a customer persona, which I totally agree with, but yet in my experience, I find so many of them don't want to be bothered. I don't know if that's been your experience, but it's like some of the companies I've worked with, they just don't see the point of it. And I'm like, well, how can you not? Like,
I mean, I think it's the question of how are you going to get more business? So if you're going to get more business by being found, then you can't play Google's game by just telling your own story over and over again, because no one wants to hear your story.
No.
And either they want, no, they really don't. So if you don't have some vision in your mind of who's got this problem that you can solve, then it's hard to think how you can do that effectively. I don't know if this is going to take us in the right direction, but I want to explore it. I think it's so fascinating. So one of the great SEO stories, I don't think I discovered this. I think someone else discovered it and shared it with me, but is that you would think that if you were going to start a really new, innovative car company that was going to be electrical powered, right? The term you'd want to own is electric cars, right?
Yeah.
So electric cars get searched for maybe like, I can't remember the numbers exactly, it's like 2 million times a month, give or take.
Yeah.
You check SEMrush, whatever. But as it happens, Tesla gets searched about 6 to 10 million times a month. So think about that for a second. So I don't think those graphs ever overlapped. I think Tesla was always searched for much more than electric cars ever was. And it's sort of the Tesla Apple kind of story where, these are people who scratch their own itch, I think. I mean, I don't know, it was just Steve Jobs just felt like the world needed to have one of these things. And so he built a Macintosh, and I think Elon Musk, I mean, I know both, as much as I, from their biographies, right? Elon Musk, the world needed an electric car. And so he needed to make that. So from the marketing standpoint, the it's in a certain sense, those are the rare people who they're not really building for a persona. Mm-hmm. They just feel like the world needs one of these things, and the one of these things that they thought the world needed, they were just so dead on, and the world just caught up with them. So in a certain sense, like, if you don't want to use a persona, you don't want to do that, then I get it. I mean, if you're Tesla or you're Apple, you can probably do it. But then again, I mean, damn, you can't think about Apple without thinking how amazing their marketing and their visual marketing has always been.
Yeah. So they're an amazing company.
They are, and I don't know. It doesn't feel to me like this was a persona-based marketing. I compare them to HubSpot, where HubSpot is completely persona-based marketing. Their personas may change over time, but it's like, we think this person has a problem and we think we can solve it with this piece of software. And we think and then we think, it turns out it's not this person. This person likes our solution. So let's go to this person, and then kind of iterate that and make that work. And that's something I think most companies can and should grow. But there are the Apples and the Teslas of the world that, can prove us all wrong. But I don't know. At some point or another, you have to stop navel gazing and say, I'm doing this for somebody else. Because if I don't, it's going to be hard to imagine someone's going to care. So
absolutely.
So yes, personas is a thing. And the way that I couch it with my clients is we have kind of 3 stages. There is develop what I call your internet identity foundations, like who are you, and let's get clear on what you're about. And oftentimes for those same clients who don't want to build a persona, that's really hard too. When you ask them, okay, well, how you describe your business in 750 characters or less, so we can put you on Google My Business. That's like a stumper. And they're like, well, because we do this, we do that. It's kind of like, okay, well, but if you want someone to say, these people have the solution to my problem, how are you going to get found? These people are like everybody else, or these people are just like Amazon, except itsy bitty teeny tiny. Like, so like, really, like, how are you going to compete there? So, anyways, I start with the identity piece, and then I go to the persona piece, and then I go to a style piece where it's okay, what are your colors, what are your fonts, et cetera, kind of things. So,
right on.
Sometimes that process is helpful to me.
And what qualities do you think are required to be effective in a digital marketing role, in your opinion?
I heard this again. I'm just quoting you HubSpot, back and forth. But they used to have an acronym called DARK. I don't remember if I remember everything about it, but I'm going to try. So one is that you're a digital citizen, that a person you enjoy being involved in the ecosystem that is the online world. You want to be on Facebook, you want to be on Twitter, you want to be on Instagram, you want to see what you like. You like being a part of that. So that's number one. Number 2 is analytics. That I think that, to me, to be effective as a digital marketer, you must have a desire to understand numerically what does working look like. What does it look like when something works, numerically, and you must be interested to be able to parse that down. That's the kind of marketing I do. There are people who are more on the brand, the graphic side of things, where I guess you don't need that as much, but you need to have somebody on the team, from my perspective, that's the analytics person, that needs to be, that has to be on the analytics side. I forgot R and K mean stood for, so that's I'll just stick with those for it. But digital citizen and analytics oriented. I think there was even a question where they asked some of their people, like, what's your favorite spreadsheet? Like, if you can answer what's your favorite spreadsheet. If you can't answer what's your favorite spreadsheet, or if you don't love spreadsheets, then the kind of marketing I do anyway is probably not for you. If you're the kind of person who just likes, likes to post on social, that's awesome. And there's a place for that too. But that's not the kind of marketing. That's not to me, that doesn't become effective business marketing on my side.
No, I agree with you. That's if someone loves spreadsheets. So what would you say then to someone who is just starting out wanting to start out in a digital marketing career? For instance, you mentioned analytics. Would you tell them to learn web analytics first before anything else?
No, I wouldn't do analytics first. I think if they're if you were a 18, 20, 16, 25, 30, whatever it is year old, or career changing person who's coming to me like, and I really want to be a career in marketing, I would want to understand more about what that term means. But I would almost certainly encourage them to do at least the inbound marketing certification at HubSpot. That's I taught this actually. I've taught a lot of classes in marketing here in Israel and also in America, and usually that's a strong part of it, where it's do the inbound marketing certification, just because I think HubSpot makes their bread because they're a generous company with their information, and they share best practices a ton. So I would definitely start. That's where I would start, and then I would see where it takes you from there. The next thing I would say is to just start writing or creating. Whatever, whether it's blogging on a WordPress blog, or whether it's developing Instagram posts or YouTube. There was a great YouTuber, I can't remember his name. I can't, but it was like, it was this great YouTube video. It was almost like 30, 40 minutes. That was his kind of recipe book for how to make like $100 a month in passive income and the different possible ways. Do you know what I'm talking about? Is it familiar to you all?
No, I haven't heard it.
I can find it. I can send it to you if you want to put in the show notes or whatever.
Okay, but sure.
It's great YouTube video. And I would definitely listen to that as well. Cause it was like, you can do, if you make a YouTube video once a week for 90 weeks, then you can expect that you'll have enough following to be making about $100 a month in follower. Like should you become a YouTuber? Should you become a email marketer? Should you invest in NFTs? It's really smart and very like, I think he's at Oxford. I think he has MD from Oxford or something, but very bright guy. Wonderful YouTube video. I definitely wrote it down somewhere in my notes, and I'm happy to pass it on to you, so you can pass it on.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So do you think colleges and universities should offer degrees in digital marketing?
I don't know.
Specifically? Yeah.
I'm a liberal arts college graduate, I spent, 12 years doing religious studies on top of that. So I think that education, by and large, the educational system is a little broken from the ground up. And so, in terms of what you should get out of college, I don't know that college is the best place to learn this stuff anymore. Because it changes so fast, and because because what you need to do more than anything else is to do it. And college, at least in my experience, was not a great place. Well, it was not a great place to learn to do that at that time. What I learned in college is how to think and how to write. And those are hugely important skills. And I also learned just great thoughts from great teachers and great people, which that's what I'd want you to get out of college, whoever you are, wherever you are. So should colleges do that? Should have a program in that? I don't know. I don't put it this way. If I had two people knocking on my door for a job, one of whom had a college major in digital marketing, and one of whom had a blog and a YouTube following of 1,000 visits a month, which is not a ton on a blog, right? But it's a decent amount. Had built up 1,000 visits a month on the blog, had an email list of 500 people, had a YouTube following of 500 people, and you asked me which one I was going to hire. You have to think about it, really?
No, you don't even have to think about it.
And there's no doubt in my mind, if you spent 4 years, thinking about my son's favorite, one of my son's favorite YouTubers is Mr. Beast, who
Mr. Beast.
He's amazing. But when you're talking about a guy who iterated, so Mr. Beast is you're talking about a guy who just iterated and worked his butt out. He dropped out of college like, this is what I want to do. I want to be a YouTuber.
Yeah.
And dang if he didn't do it. I mean, I don't know how many failed Mr. Beasts there are on the side of the road who didn't make it and who've still been doing it for 10 years, iterating and not finding the right solution. But he sure as heck did. So,
he did.
That mindset and that experience of just experimenting until you create something that enough people find value and they'll actually tune in and give you 1 million, 10 million, 15 million subscribers is a heck of a lot more effective to me than doing what college does well, which is find the timeless truths that every young person should absorb or at least experience and consider as they grow. I think that's what colleges should do. Should do a better. That's what I would want my kids to get out of college anyway, as opposed to just a marketing degree.
No, I appreciate that answer. That's awesome. Yeah. So I noticed in my research that you were involved with an initiative called Tech to Peace. I found it very fascinating. Can you tell our audience a little bit about that?
Oh yeah. I want to give just a brief piece of the backstory, if I may.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So the brief piece was, so I moved from Baltimore, Maryland to Israel in 2018. And back before COVID, back before the war in Ukraine, God, this is just a different world. But as it's been for however long, the Arab-Israeli conflict was still, as is always, a big issue. So I found that there was a YouTuber who I saw, I think on Facebook, named Nas, who had a video about the truth about Jews and Arabs. It's a great video, so smart. He's such a beautiful human being, and it really inspired me. And so I reached out to him and I said, I think the future of building peace between Jews and Jewish Israelis and Arab Israelis, or Jewish Palestinians, Israeli Palestinians, however, depending on how you want to say it, is economic, by creating businesses where it just makes sense for us to work together to solve common goals and to profit and prosper together. So, and I would love to find an intern to work for me that would be a Palestinian person. So he's like, great, here's a guy, Adnan Jabir. Let me give you his information. Adnan, sweetheart of a guy, and I really enjoyed, working with him as an intern. And he went on and got involved in this group called Tech to Peace, and that Tech to Peace program. I reached out to him at some point, and we got together, and he mentioned he was doing this Tech to Peace, and he brought me in. That's how I got involved in that. The program takes, I think they do every quarter. They take 30 young people, usually between the ages of, let's say, I think it's like 20 and 25 or 18 and 25, 15 Arab Israelis and 15 Jewish Israelis. And they put them together for, I think it's a 2-week program where they go sort of a retreat style thing. And part of the program, it's sponsored by Google and by the US has some money involved in it. The Netherlands, Spain, a lot of great organizations. So that I was brought in, these groups were they're supposed to create a group. Excuse me. These 30 students are broken up. They break themselves up into groups, and they have to form a group that includes one female, one male, one Arab, one Palestinian, one Jew. So it has to be, they have to have diversity in the group. And these groups are supposed to come up with a business idea and then work that business idea through to a pitch, like a hackathon. So I came in for a day-long project to help these, to help each of these groups build their pitch to be able to pitch to a group of judges, of which I was one, as well. All the different mentors were there to help their groups and to help them pitch, to build a business that would become, that could be a viable. It was supposed to be a viable business based upon, I think, what the United Nations identified as, I think, 8 different places that things needed help, whether it's in social justice or in limiting greenhouse gases. I can't remember all the different factors. So anyways, that was what the project was about. And it was an amazing experience, both for the mentors that I got to meet, who are just really remarkable people, to the really idealistic students. Just being in a room of people who were all just kind of like, for lack of a better word, just normal. You know what I mean? Like there was just, it was just such a great, I in my world of college or internet or whatever else, there's so much vitriol and hatred about, people on behalf of the Palestinian cause, people on behalf of the Israeli cause, on behalf of Zionism or anti-Zionism, and just have 30 people in the room just talking about business and how can you make something that actually makes an impact and makes a profit and works.
Yeah.
It was, and there was just nothing else to it. And it just felt very natural and very normal. I mean, and there was a lot of stories to tell in that, just that short 10-hour period, but it was just such a just a cool experience, just a great experience.
Well, it sounds awesome. So that being said, Adam, if people want to learn more about you and get in touch with you and contact with you, where can they find you?
Ability SEO is my website, even though I'm transitioning to Ability Growth Partners because that's really much more better explanation. But Ability SEO is a great.
So abilityseo.com.
Yeah, that's probably the best place to reach me. On the socials, on Twitter, I'm AJ613 or Ability Growth. On Instagram, I'm Ability Growth. So all those places. Instagram is where I'm hanging out too. So, yeah.
Cool. And so I just have 5 follow-up questions, some rapid fire questions here for you. What is your favorite month?
God, it's funny. I mean, August is my birthday, so I think that's probably but some July came to mind. I don't know why, but August is my birthday month.
August? Oh, right on. Yeah. Where did you go on your last vacation?
What's a vacation?
Okay, so if you could visit anywhere in the world, where would you go?
I mean, last time I went away, I went to DC to visit my mom, and I love DC. I've been wanting to get back to Italy for a long time because I think Florence is one of the most beautiful cities in the world.
Florence, Italy?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
And I would love to go back to see the Michelangelos there, and also go back to Rome and also to Milan to see the Leonardo, the Last Supper.
Oh, cool.
So those are in Paris to see the Louvre again. So those are places that are on my list.
Right on. What is your favorite meal of the day?
Breakfast-ish. I tend to have a late breakfast, which tends to be a smoothie of broccoli, spinach, and fit powder, and it just makes me happy.
Cool. What was your favorite subject in school?
Probably either history or English. And when you say school, I'm thinking about high school.
Yeah.
So that's probably history or English. I fell in love with the sciences later, and that I'm passionate about them now. But history and English when I was in high school.
Right on. What is one thing worth spending more money on?
Family.
Family?
Yeah. Right on. And lunch. Going out for lunch.
Yeah.
With other taking people out to lunch. That's a great thing.
Other people. Right on.
But taking people, finding people you take out to lunch is just a great thing to do. Just can't recommend it highly enough.
Right on. Whether they be family or potential business
partners. That's more business. Family is more at home. But to find people and just like I would love to take out to lunch. Could take out to lunch and just talk to you. It's just a great thing to do. Love it.
Right on. Hey, Adam, I really, really want to thank you for being on the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you, learning about your career in digital marketing, your agency, and everything that you've done. It's fascinating. I'm sure there's more we could talk about for even longer, but I really want to thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us today.
It was such a delight. I really appreciate the time. I really appreciate the invitation, and I'm just so much fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.